Thank you. I have great news for you. Any math that we're going to have to do, I'll do it for you. High in the sky, surrounded by ice and wind, I take a step and look and see safety is 29,000 feet below me. I slip. I awake. It was just a dream. I'm a junior in high school. I saw Into Thin Air at the IMAX, and I am obsessed with Mount Everest. But it would only be a dream, because my entire life I've struggled with weight, so I would never be in the physical condition necessary to make that climb. In fact, I was the girl that always finished every run last in gym, and I was the one that convinced everybody on vacation, let's take a cab 5 blocks. Today I would have said, let's call an Uber. My parents always said that I would live a life of service. In the 7th grade, we were asked to dress as our hero. The boys dressed as baseball players, girls as movie stars, and there was me dressed as Mother Teresa. In all the research I had done, Mother Teresa never once mentioned wanting to climb Mount Everest. So with that dream faded away. In 2009, after returning from Greece, where I struggled to climb the top of the Parthenon, I woke up and I said, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I got a trainer and a nutritionist and lost 35 pounds. My friend Stephanie called, hey girl, do you want to go run a half marathon in Miami Beach in March? I laughed. I figured I'll sign up, I'll forget to train, and then I'll cheer everybody on from the beach working on my tan. Challenge accepted, but would I make it? I went to my first running class. My ankles hurt, I had to walk. I finally turned around. I went a half mile that day. I told the coach I quit. He said, Chrissy, keep coming back. Every day, it gets a little bit better. Somehow, I made it to the start of that race, and 3 hours and 19 minutes later, I made it to the finish. But let me tell you, miles 10 through 13, I said to my friend, I'm never doing this again. I got to the finish line, and I said, when is the next race? I was hooked. I ran 3 more half marathons that year. I progressed up to triathlon. Don't ask me why, because the clothing is so tight and atrocious. Clearly, I thought I needed to save time in transition by wearing a baseball cap underneath my terribly fitting helmet. Of course, you need a granola bar to refuel after a 400-meter swim. And by the way, music is illegal. I worked my way up to the half Ironman distance, which is 70.3 miles. During that time, I decided I wanted to document my journey. I wanted to write a blog to show all angles of it, the good, the bad, the victories, the struggles. My first post was about going to try on a wetsuit. It was like shoving sausage into a casing. With that, my blog name was born, Sausage in a Wetsuit. I attracted readers, friends, and strangers alike from more than 12 countries and received more than 24,000 hits. A girl who took a cab 5 blocks. I had my eyes set on an Ironman. I didn't know what was ahead of me. It was my version of Mount Everest. So I hired a coach and began training in 2013. When I got to the start line on my first 70.3 race that season, it was in Kansas. I figured easy, flat. Nope. The course chewed me up and spit me back out. There were so many hills, I was the last person off the bike. And at mile 6.2 of the run, here comes the Ironman employees to take my timing chip. What does that mean? It means your race is over. Your day's done. You are not good enough that day to finish. But not finishing was never in my mind. I had set out to go 70.3 miles that day, and that's what I was going to do. 10 hours later, I get to the finish line. I'm greeted by my friend who finished a mere 5 hours ahead of me, and some Ironman employees as they were tearing down that line. 6 months later, I took on an Ironman. That's a 2.4, here's the math part. That's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and a 26.2 mile marathon. That's 140.6 miles for you math majors. It was a fun but super tough day. I got off the bike in plenty of time and went to the run. After all, it was the run that started it all. That run ate me alive. I fell down a hole so deep and dark I never got back out. After many, many trips to the portalettes and a wish to be knocked unconscious and dumped into a lake, at mile 19 of the run, I saw those Ironman employees. They were after my timing chip again. That snapped me back into consciousness. I didn't need an official finish to make my dream come true. The course was closing. They begged me to stop. They said, "It's not safe, just make it a day." I said, "No, I'm going on. You can have my chip." They took my chip. The course was now closed. Within minutes, you couldn't even tell a race had occurred. My friends went to a closing aid station and got water and food, and we made the last 7.6 miles. At that point, I felt everything because all the adrenaline had left my body. It took 2 hours. Across the lake, I could hear the rally of the finish line. The very last finishers were coming through. It is a sound like no other. My heart sank. That was not going to be there for me. 18 and a half hours later, I turned the last corner to the finish line. 1:30 in the morning, to be greeted to 100 people, family and friends, strangers who had heard about this crazy girl that was determined to finish. And the very same employees that were in Kansas. The bleachers were long gone, and they rolled the finish line back out and put up a finish tape. 18 and a half hours, that's a long time. What can you do in that time? You can get up, you can go to work, you can be there for 8 hours, go home, run errands, help the kids with homework, make dinner, put the kids to bed, watch the late show, go to bed yourself, and I'm still out there on the course. I got 140.6 tattooed on the inside of my wrist. This is not the typical tattoo that most Ironman finishers get, because I don't technically consider myself an Ironman. The rules state you have to finish within 17 hours, and I didn't do that. But I went the distance. I was proud. I wanted a reminder of that. A girl who couldn't go a half mile had just powered through 140.6 miles without stopping. At that moment, I was Chrissy reinvented. I knew I could do anything I put my mind to. On this journey, I thought about reinvention, and I don't think much about individuals being reinvented. The best I could come up with was George Foreman, who went from a boxer to a grilling giant who saved a lot of college students from eating terrible dorm food. But I learned 3 lessons about reinvention. 1, you have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, fake it. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. During this journey, I had to have friends tell me to my face, "You're not going to be able to do this." I had anonymous emails coming through telling me I couldn't do this. I knew that if I didn't believe in myself, no one else would. So I faked it. I faked it until I made it. And for the very first time in my life, I stopped hiding behind the fat person I thought I was, and I found out what I was made of. I was a tough cookie that was made of a lot of grit. The second thing I found out is that it takes tenacity. I got knocked down a lot of times and had to get back up. Without that grit, there's no way I would have finished that half marathon. What would have happened if I didn't finish that race in Kansas and knew the empowerment of what it took to keep going when someone said, "Don't"? That tenacity is what helps drive me every day. 3, you have to be open to where this reinvention is going to take you. Life tends to unfold the way it's supposed to, but you have to be open to it. Because I started running, I found out about an organization called Back on My Feet. It's a nonprofit that uses running to help those experiencing homelessness change the way that they view their lives. Since 2011, we have served more than 400 members and helped 1/3 of those find housing and employment. But what does running have to do with homelessness? I knew from my journey that running gives you power. It gives you self-confidence and self-esteem. It gives you tools to work on goal setting and discipline. All those are necessary to move your life forward and believe that you can achieve something greater. I started running with our homeless community 3 days a week at 5:45 in the morning. We ran rain or sun or snow, and we were out there together. And I realized I was no different than anybody else in that circle. Sure, I had a house and a job, but I suffered from poor self-esteem. There was so many things in front of me, it felt like it was endless and it was never going to go away. But that running gave us an outlet. It gave us those positive tools to move our life forward. I am so blessed to be the executive director here locally. Who would have thought the girl that took a cab everywhere was now leading an organization that would use running to change lives? My journey is no different than that of Leah's. Leah was training for the mini marathon a few weeks ago, and when she was struggling, I asked, "Why are you even doing this in the first place?" She said to me, "I've never completed anything I've ever started." 2 weeks ago, Leah finished the mini and reinvented herself as a finisher. Or there's Joe, who was a homeless veteran addicted to drugs, and now he is an endurance runner with his own apartment and a job that helps serve others. We all had to get knocked down to get back up to where we are. After a failed attempt in 2014 at an Ironman, I will go back in 2016, and I will keep going back until I get that finished under 17 hours. Anybody that came out to the run today and has a blue bracelet, please raise your hands. Applaud yourself. You were a part of somebody's reinvention today. Thank you for that. You know, I think sometimes, what if Stephanie had never called me? What if I'm your Stephanie here today? So I challenge you to look at doing something. It doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be working with people that are experiencing homelessness. It doesn't have to be an Ironman. But do something, because something's possible. So I ask you, what is your reinvention story going to be? Thank you. Thank you. Sorry I went over.